You saw President Biden today in his speech talk about this Republican movement now to defund the FBI. There are people running to be members of the House of Representatives, Republicans, saying they want to defund the FBI. Some saying they want to abolish it, just get rid of it, not replace it with anything, not some other version of it, nothing. What does it mean to the future of how you govern in the House of Representatives if you have members of one party who believe that there should be no federal enforcement of federal laws?
Well, I mean, it's completely disabling, I think, of our form of government if you have members of one party who, out of a blind obedience to their party leader, want to essentially tear down law enforcement, tear down the Justice Department, because their party leader may have engaged in criminal activity and they don't want to investigate it. And I think you're absolutely right in your characterization of Senator Graham and the dangerous irresponsibility of what he is saying. And, you know, for that matter, of course, what Donald Trump is doing and saying, which amounts to basically, if they come after me, I will pull the whole house down around me. And to have more members of Congress who share, you know, that lack of commitment to our Constitution, to our institutions, you know, is a terrifying prospect.
One of the things we see with Lindsey Graham tonight is he is now afraid of what he said on Fox the last time he was on Fox, and he's refusing to say it again. And that may be a distinction between Lindsey Graham and, say, Marjorie Taylor Greene, who seems to be on a mission every time to say something more outrageous and crazy than she said the last time she spoke. That's one difference, is that Lindsey Graham, when those words are thrown in front of him and he is criticized over it for 2 days, he himself becomes afraid of what he said.
I think that's true. I think with Lindsey Graham, you see some fleeting signs of conscience flare up from time to time that are quickly extinguished. Others, and I would put Marjorie Taylor Greene in this category, are just kind of negative, bile-filled performance artists. And, you know, happily at the moment, those are small in number in Congress, but there are a lot more where she came from who are running, who have won Republican primaries in very red districts, who appeared to be poised to join the Congress. And, you know, it's just such a staggering turn of events in the country. But also, when you take the long view and you think about some of the giants who once served in the Congress, people of principle like John Lewis and so many others. And now you see, you know, sort of the crackpot caucus growing within the GOP conference. What a terrible turn of events it is for the country.
Can you tell us when you expect the next public hearing of the January 6th committee to occur?
You know, certainly when we get into the fall, so September, October, we will definitely, I think, have a hearing or hearings on our recommendations about how to keep the country safe going forward. We may also have a hearing or hearings of a factual nature, the kind that we've had in the past. But we want to make sure that whatever hearing we do is as meaty and substantive as the ones we've done. And we don't want to have hearings simply to have hearings. So we are hard work gathering new evidence and contemplating what our next public presentation ought to be.
Congressman Adam Schiff, thank you very much for joining us tonight.
Thank you, Lawrence.